Hey gang, so I thought it might be fun to do a deep dive on the progress tracker since I really haven't done one of those in a little while, and we did get 4.0. So I thought it might be fun to kind of do a retrospective Sprintwatch here and kind of a prospective, just kind of what I think is going to be coming in the next year, maybe a couple years before 4.0. Or 4.0, I guess 4.0 drops for real as opposed to a preview leading up to 1.0 in who knows how many years. So that sounds good. Let's get this. Okay, so you might have noticed that the background is a little different here. I don't have my green screen or anything like that. I basically moved to my utility room, just because it's a little bit easier to organize stuff, has a little bit more room for Marley. Meet Marley. He is having a good old time with my 80-pound Doberman. They are very cute together. But he is very tired right now, which is why I'm recording the video now. But anyway, just kind of wanted to explain what's going on with the background, why I haven't been showing a lot of videos with me in them. Not that you guys need to see me, but anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. So first, just kind of looking forward, I thought it might be fun to kind of look at 1.0 and what they're going to be dropping for us eventually here. So Starwear is just all the mix match clothes. You'll be able to put armor with clothing. You'll be able to wear backpacks with clothing, which to me is pretty huge because it's kind of the limiting factor right now to wearing clothes anywhere. That and being able to wear like chest armor or something like that. They haven't really implemented a system that justifies wearing clothes yet. They haven't said you can't wear heavy armor while piloting a ship or anything, but that is coming. And once that comes, that'll be one of those big sea change things that everybody's all like, why did they implement this? They never said they were going to implement this. Down to Chris Roberts and all that, when it's literally something they've been talking about since 2014. But anyway, Starwear is kind of a step in that direction. So that one's kind of a big one. I think we'll probably see that one sooner than later. Probably, maybe not with the full implementation of 4.0, but I would expect to see that in the next couple months. Law and security, there's a big one. I will come back to this. Planetary shields, that one's a long ways off. That'll probably come after base building is in. Ownership, again, is a base building thing. The guild system, I think they'll start implementing this one pretty quick. Maybe within the next year, but we'll see. Insurance, taxes, and warranty. These are all things that are meant to drain your resources to give you a reason to interact with the verse and make money. So one of the things that I like to point out is that the people that are actual griefers, not just pirates, but people that are just pad ramming and all of that, eventually they're going to hit the point where they don't have insurance for their ships because their ships are blowing up all the time. Insurance is all like, we're dumping you. And warranty and that kind of stuff. They're going to have such a toxic reputation with everyone that they're not going to be able to land places and repair their ship. They're not going to be able to restock. They're not going to be able to refuel. So eventually they'll kind of be frozen out. Of course, they're going to have alt accounts. So what can you do? But eventually there's diminishing return on that too, since each alt account represents $35 and people at least $35, and people's desire to troll begins to get whittled away as that cost, that real world cost goes up. Reputation V2, again, this is going to be tied up with that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. New player professions, they're going to have things like hunters, all sorts of things. They had a good one on Sicon this year, if you wanted to look through that to kind of get an idea. And they'll have a lot of things tied in with the guild system. Death of a Spaceman, again, this is going to be a sea change thing that they're going to implement that people are going to howl over, especially in an alpha. It's going to be interesting how they do it, because this will be something that they have to test. They have to test this before it goes live. But when you're testing in an alpha environment, when bug crashes and stuff like that or killing your character, like when you fall through the planet, does that count towards death of a spaceman? Probably. Is it something that should count towards death of a spaceman? Probably not. But they're going to be running into these situations where edge cases, like how are they going to handle that? And doing that in a live environment is going to tick off the community, but no, that's going to happen. And it's part of the show. AI blades. These are the things that everybody thinks you're going to be. Of course, the picture they're using there is the hammerhead. I don't think you'll be able to control all the turrets of the hammerhead with an AI blade. I think the max will probably be 3 AI blades, maybe a couple more. We'll see. But people have dreams of soloing these giant ships like javelins and stuff like that, and they will get in knockdown, drag out arguments. And you'll probably see some of that down below in the comments if you check this thing out a little bit later, where they'll be like, no, you're an idiot. You can totally solo a javelin with nothing more than AI blades. And I heard it from so-and-so, so it's got to be true. It's probably not true. Truth is, none of us really know what AI blades are going to do. And CIG is going to balance things out. But CR has specifically said he doesn't want people using AI blades over human players. So just know that. Space stations, that's going to be an in-game thing. That's going to be after they have base building. Crafting, we're going to start getting crafting, I think, pretty soon. Base building, I think we'll get like tier 0 of base building real soon. Probably next 3 to 6 months, if I had to guess, unless 4.0 is just crapping the bed and they have to work on server meshing instead. I think we'll be getting tier 0 base building very soon. Player to player trading, that is huge, especially for someone like me who's their dream ship is the Banu Merchantman. Player organizations, ability to create and fully manage player organizations, including a dedicated mobiGlas app. That's massive. As someone that is ostensibly running an org right now, and I would say ostensibly because the way that I structure the Carnival after running orgs and clans and other things in other institutions, other games, is I wanted to make a very kind of cellular democratic system, like a true democratic system where everything can trickle up. I have a vote, but everyone else has got a vote too, kind of a deal. Being able to run that kind of thing in game is basically impossible. Like, it's all got to be done with third-party apps. Discord, Guilded, TeamSpeak, all of that has to be done outside of the game. Social mobiGlas app goes along with that. When will we see that? Who the hell knows? It's one of those techs that I would guess is probably mid priority to them. Like, after they get game loops working, like a majority of the game loops working, I would assume they're going to start swinging back and kind of trying to rope in the orgs. Citizenship is a big deal, but we don't know all of the benefits they'll entail. Apparently, if you play through Squadron 42, one of the benefits is citizenship in the UEE. Kind of neat. Global illumination, if you've ever flown in dark areas of the verse, like through the asteroids, and it's pitch black and you got to be constantly pinging, that's not always tenable when you're in combat. Star audio, this is the one where they had the Doppler effect. It's kind of neat. I think that's going to be implemented pretty quick. Star Sim, this is what Quanta has become, is Star Sim. So it's kind of the background apparatus that controls the economy, all of the NPC scheduling, all of that is Star Sim. Very cool. How quickly will it be implemented? Probably depends a lot on server meshing, and I would assume dynamic server meshing. So this one's probably a couple years off for this to really be implemented. Hopefully prior to that, they implement more of this sort of mocked up economy in the background would be really nice. content instancing, again, you're kind of probably waiting on dynamic server meshing. Dynamic server meshing, of course, is one that's probably a bit further down the field. Like they're going to have to fix server meshing, then they got to spin up dynamic server meshing. Just kind of a quick explanation of what those are. What we have now is, let's say that Stanton has 4 servers. So you got a server for Crusader, one for Hurston, one for Area 18, one for Microtech, or ArcCorp, one for Microtech. And those servers control those areas, and you can travel from one server to the other seamlessly, which is kind of the Star Citizen killer feature, you could say. Dynamic server meshing will be, let's say there are no players in Stanton, it won't spin up a server for it. Let's say somebody comes over from Pyro, then it's all like, okay, somebody is coming into Stanton, it'll spin up a server for Stanton. Let's say that person goes over to Microtech, it'll be like, okay, there's only one person, we just need to control it. Now let's say 1,000 people come in and 500 go to Microtech and 500 go to Crusader. It'll spin up a server for Crusader and spin up a server for Microtech, and those will be 2 separate servers so that the total load is only, let's say, 500 people as opposed to 1,000 total, which the servers obviously can't handle because Bezos gave us the cheap servers apparently. Planet Tech V5, it's going to be real interesting to see all of this stuff come in. We kind of saw little hints when they were showing the swamps and the like redwood forests and things like that. It would be really cool to start seeing some alien environments come in, because this very much feels like a Star Wars kind of environment where everything is kind of very Earth-like. It's just, this is the ice planet, this is the forest planet. I know they want to get away from that, and part of that is dynamic weather. Main story is a big one that's going to be coming. That is one where there will be kind of a background story. It'll take you different places and you can do it. It's going to be interesting how they have the main story playable or replayable, and I think that'll have something to do with the dynamic missions. Location stories, new missions, and narrative arcs set in specific areas, allowing players to experience the uniqueness of various locations in the verse. Again, I'm not sure how you do that in a massively multiplayer game. You can have like a background story that involves lore, but how do you have it advance? Like, if the arc of the story is, I go through the story and I kill the big bad, and the big bad reappears instantly for another player to go through that arc, then it makes my whole story arc with my character pointless. And I mean, granted, that's just kind of a trope of games in general, that your playthrough of Cyberpunk and my playthrough of Cyberpunk are 2 separate things. But when you're dealing with a massively multiplayer game, what does that mean? I'm curious how they're going to navigate that. Station warfare, of course, that's going to come with stations, so closer to the end of 1.0. And again, 1.0 is an end goal, so when they have all of these different things, that's when 1.0 is done. It's not going to be like, we're going to release patch 1.0 and it's going to have these things. It's the other way around. Once we have all these things, we're considering it 1.0 in the live release of the game. Just saying. Utility tunnels. So this is one that I'm kind of looking forward to. Oh, Imperial Sports Federation. Considering that they kind of ditched the idea of Sadaball, they never really figured out what that was going to be. They're mostly going to focus on racing, which is probably a good move, but I would have loved to see something like Sadaball. Anyway, utility tunnels. This is going to be coming with building interiors, which I'll get to a little bit later. Nick system. We'll get to that a little bit later. The council. This is, think of it like the mob it's organized crime. So it's a guild that does organized crime. Mercenary Guild, Academy of Sciences, United Resource Workers, Interstellar Transport Guild. I think that is all of them. Those are all the different guilds they're going to have that you can kind of join and get bonuses. That'll be blueprints, ships, probably access to suits, access to special trade, that kind of thing. Will really be reputation guided, which is awesome. That's what we need in the system. I'll be getting into reputation a bit too. Building interiors. So this one's related to the utility tunnels. Building interiors we don't really have yet. This is tech that they're working on. This will be cool because not only will it greatly expand the playable area in the game, especially on like civilized worlds with cities, it'll start opening up options for player habs. Like, I own this condo in this building in Area 18. That is my condo. I can go there, I can land, it's a blank slate. I can fill it with bodies. I don't know why that is the first one I went to. Let's say couches. Anyway, Castra system, Terra system, we'll be talking about that in a bit. But anyway, that's just kind of the things that we're going to be building towards 1.0. I would hope with server meshing working, once they have 4.0 working, and I fully acknowledge that there are people that are getting 60K errors right now and can't even log into the game. I don't know how quickly they'll have that fixed, but probably by the time they drop 4.1, sorry. Anyway, let's move on to the progress tracker. We'll just kind of go through some of the favorites here, things that they've rolled out, things that I see that I think are pretty cool, and we'll just kind of talk about that. Actor status tier 2. This is one that I like to talk about that I think will be the next implementation of the med system, along with other things like medical game loop. I'm going to be doing a talk with my friend Sinister real soon on what we think the next tier of medical gameplay will bring, because right now there is no skill involved. If you have a tier 1 injury or a tier 2 injury or a tier 3 injury, they're all handled exactly the same. You lay in a bed, it scans you, and you're healed. Eventually that will not be the case. And again, that'll be kind of game changing. But along with that, this one also has hygiene and stuff like that. So if you're not sending your character to the shoilet to shoil themselves, then you're going to smell in game, and NPCs might have bad reactions to you for that. It will probably also include NPC interactions of eventually, if you're hiring crew and your ship does not have the amenities they expect, like good food, a shoilet, something like that. Like right now, the Cuddy Black doesn't have one. You're probably going to either get bad NPCs that aren't very good, they're desperate enough to want that kind of job, or you'll have to pay a premium for average NPCs to work there. Additionally, this has medical insurance and cybernetic limbs, things like that. So actor stats tier 2, really, really big deal, especially for the medical game loop. Additional derelict settlements. So you can sort of see the line right here is what they're working on, and they're not working on this right now. That's actually not true. They're going to be making assets for additional derelict settlements, basically one for each type of spaceship, forever. For as long as they're making assets for this game, they're going to be making more of those. So this is a bit of a fake out here. Additional player customization. So one of the news that we got this year, which I had kind of been waiting for, was they had always said that the bodies, like the actual body shape, is governed by metrics and they can't change it at all. I never really bought that. I could understand that it wasn't a priority, and this isn't included in additional player customization. I'm just using this card as an example. But being able to have different body shapes, different heights within limitations, like within an envelope, that sort of thing is just hugely necessary to kind of break up the monotony of the verse. Right now, there are definitely faces for a heavier person, like a great big fat person, but the body doesn't match. The body is built like an Olympic sprinter, so it's kind of like, and they all look uniform, all uniform height. It was never governed by metrics because you could do a lot of things with the IK system. There is some balance involved because if you have a really tiny character that's really, really thin, they're going to be harder to hit than a great big fat character. So do you balance it by hit points? Do you balance it by damage reduction? Or do you just have the envelope so low that it doesn't make a difference? But the thing about metrics, never bought that because you have a human male and a human female model, and they're different heights. And eventually you're going to have alien models where Xian are short and quote unquote fat. And you have Banu, which are tall and thin. You have Tavaran, which are roughly the same height as humans and very thin. I'm forgetting a few. Vandul are very tall. You get the idea. So they were going to have to accommodate all of those different shapes in their metrics eventually anyway. Now, will it be something as crazy as some of the character builders in other games? Probably not. They do have to have limitations. They could make NPCs be much more expansive. But anyway, character customization, another thing we're going to get. And I will not spend 10 minutes talking on each of these. The Idris, hopefully we'll be seeing the Idris pretty soon as like a live model that people who have bought Idrises can actually use their own that they've purchased. They've said they'll release that with Squadron 42, but they've kind of given us access to them recently. Squadron 42, I am guessing is like an end of the year thing. When they say 2026 for Squadron 42, I'm pretty sure they mean early in 2026, and that's kind of the outer limit of when it will release. Aerodynamic control systems, or surfaces. This is the Aeron. So if you look at a wing, it's got little flaps. Those flaps kind of change the lift on a wing. So a wing is kind of shaped like this. So it's flat on the bottom, got a curve on the top. Basically what it does is it creates low pressure above the wing and high pressure underneath the wing, because the air traveling underneath the wing is moving faster than the wing air over the wing. That generates lift that causes the wing to lift. With the flap on the back, you both control that lift, and also if you have alternating flaps, obviously it'll control aerodynamics of the vehicle. Some vessels in the verse will be much better at that than others. Like I would assume the Reliant series would be very good. It's got very broad wings. Something like the Cuddy or the Caterpillar that's basically literally shaped like a brick. Not as much control surfaces. Those things will start to be much worse in atmosphere. That is going to be a sea change people are going to have to adjust. AI arcade machine. So of course on this one, I'm not actually talking about the arcade machine. I just use as an example for AI in the game, NPCs in the game. Now that we have this server meshing, I don't know if you've noticed, but the NPCs have been much more responsive. They have wild lines. They're not sitting in the air. Generally, NPCs at bases are much more responsive and might even shoot at you first. It's actually kind of challenging now. I don't think that I've done a bunker mission without coming out with at least a tier 3 injury, which is good to see. So AI, we should start getting some of these things and seeing a lot more life in the verse. This one I think is interesting. AI ground vehicles. So we might actually see NPCs. So if you pull up to a bunker now, everybody's walking around. You might see an NPC at a bunker roll out a Centurion, which is the Atlas chassis with the 4 guns, and start shooting at you. Or you'll be walking up and somebody in a storm might be coming out to meet you, or somebody in a dragonfly might be coming out to attack you. That is going to be pretty huge. when it's not just a static turret or dudes on the ground just walking, that's going to be real interesting. Like, you might get attacked by an anti-air storm or someone in a cyclone. Kind of a big deal. Untrained combat, I just think that this will be cool to start seeing some variation. Right now we've got Ninetales, which are super accurate out to 300 meters with submachine guns. It would be nice to see some variants, like the one guy is shooting, he's just like shooting wildly or holding the gun gangster style. Of course, he misses every shot. Anyway, unarmed combat, untrained combat, that kind of thing with the NPCs would be really neat to start seeing that variance, just more immersive. And in the same school of thought, we got EVA tech. So EVA tech, just like being able to move around the ground, we haven't seen this yet, is actual NPCs in space around an object. When this is implemented, should be very interesting. Like, I'll get to this in a couple minutes down here, but the asteroid bases that have a lot of zero-G in them, having this EVA tech will start to really change the challenges of those locations. Plus, they'll be able to start boarding you at a certain point. Moving on down, Anvil Legionnaire. So this is a ship that we were, in theory, getting this year in 2024. They axed that idea because they don't have hacking. So this one, they flat out said, we're waiting for hacking. Other than that, it could probably be used as a drop ship. They might have to rethink some elements of this ship, because just having a very narrow tube that your Marines have to sprint down in order to get into the ship that they're boarding sounds like death trap territory for me. But anyway, Anvil Legionnaire, once you hear hacking is being worked on, expect to see that ship kind of be the gold standard for hacking ships. Artificial gravity is something that we're waiting on engineering. This is the point where I'm going to mention that something I've been saying for a couple years now is I really, really, really hope that they don't roll out engineering with 4.0, because 4.0 is going to break a lot of things and engineering is going to break a lot of things. And when you're breaking things together, it's sometimes hard to tell which piece is breaking things. Now I seem kind of prescient on that, because 4.0 broke a lot of things, but it's getting better. I hope those of you who can't log in are able to log in once everything's working great. Hopefully by the time you get in, it'll be a streamlined surface and you won't, or process, and you won't know what all the rest of us were complaining about. Fingers crossed. Asteroid facilities. I think these are pretty neat. They have these in Pyro now. Right now, they're just kind of like dungeon crawl locations. One of my hopes is that they add a couple secret ones out there that are actually cargo trade locations that you got to have a certain rep to know about, defended and that sort of thing. It would also be nice if players could make asteroid facilities, because you could have your ground base, which is where you trade all your stuff, but then you have your asteroid base that's hidden out in the air in Halo somewhere, and or the Olympic pool out in Goss or whatever, and no one knows where that location is. Of course, this game being a game, people are going to find that out, but hey, that's part of the fun. Atlas, I just wanted to point out that CIG has a naming problem. Like, we now have 3 things that are named Atlas. So this is the replication layer is named Atlas, or one of the systems that powers the replication layer is named Atlas. We've got the Atlas chassis, which is the little walker cargo mover, and we've got the Atlas chassis, which is the one that the Spartan Centurion and I'm forgetting one, but yeah. Yeah, so lots of Atlases and Legionnaires and everything else. I think the Legionnaire is the one that I was thinking of. Backpacks. So eventually you'll be able to wear backpacks with clothing. They've kind of changed the way backpacks work. You can fit more stuff in backpacks. So now you can put actual guns in your backpack, which is nice, because it used to be if you'd go looting and you found like a really cool gun, like a rail gun or something like that, you'd have to drop whatever gun you're carrying. And if you kitted that thing out, or if it's a rare gun, like let's say an S71 is hard to come by now, and you had it kitted out with laser sights and a good scope and a silent or a suppressor or something, you'd have to drop that off to make room for the more situationally useful railgun. And this just gives you more options. Bounty Merchantman. Base building. Base building is still a ways off till we get the real thing, but I think we're going to get tier 0 pretty quickly here. A lot like engineering, I don't think they're going to roll out base building until they're sure they've got server meshing working. They're going to roll out that little Argo cargo mover they got us. They've also got a little base builder version of that. I wouldn't be surprised if they give us one of those just to build little tiny containers or habs, just to sort of see where we put them, how we break the game, what they need to do to fix it, kind of a deal. What they need to do on cleanup, that'll be a big one, because people will definitely be making shapes out there with all of their buildings. Boat movement parameters. This is one, we saw this in the Squadron 42 demo. I think one of those ships on the side scroll has a dark horse chance of being an actual boat. Is that useful in a game like this? Maybe they start implementing like deep sea fishing or implementing more stuff underwater, but I'll get to that in a second. Boreal Stalker. I think they're going to sneak this. This is the big Yeti, the thing that looks kind of like a cross between a bear and the Hoth Wampa from Revenge or Empire Strikes Back. I think they're just going to sneak this in without telling us. So you'll be dinking around on Microtech and all of a sudden this giant Yeti will attack you. I think that'd be cool. Bounty Hunter V2. This is one that I was hoping they were going to drop with Pyro. I think actually dropping it after Pyro to sort of see what people are doing, so you know what to tie into bounty hunting, would be very cool. But this is going to be neat. You can have people truck in from Pyro where there isn't really a law system, and I'll get to that in a second, do crimes in Stanton and then run back to Pyro. And then a bounty hunter will have to be able to track someone through Pyro, which is a very hostile environment. So people that are committing crimes in Stanton will be very easy to track because there's comsats everywhere. Tracking people in Pyro and probably Nyx will be extremely difficult. Like how they implement that whole system will be interesting to watch. But bounty hunting version 2, I don't think they're going to wait real long to roll that one out, just because there are some issues right now, and I'll get to that. Building interiors, I talked about a little bit on the intro part, but building interiors are going to be huge. This is going to greatly increase the playable areas. They're planning on having habs up top, living areas, both for NPCs and players. Of course, the NPCs are just despawning, but you could have interactions with them there, I would assume. Then they have stores, or offices, and then they have stores on kind of the ground level, and then they have kind of this underground area, which was that sort of pipes and sewers and stuff like that. Think dungeon crawl, or a ways to get illicit materials into a secure way will be through those pipes and sewage lines and whatever. What I am hoping this brings, along with an update to Area 18, is ground level. I mean, they'd have to creatively block it off so you can't just go anywhere on the ground, but it would be nice to have some of those Blade Runner moments where you're walking around on the street and you're looking up and you just see layer and layer and layer of Area 18 or ArcCorp going up over your head, or Hurston. New Hurston is sizable too, but it would be nice to have some like ground interaction places, like shady stores, shady people you can interact with, that kind of thing, where it's just kind of, it's in the middle of a lawful city, but you can definitely do some illicit things. Anyway, building interiors, kind of a step towards that. Cargo system refactor, this is something that we got in 3.18, but now it's even more implemented with having to move cargo manually on and off your ship. I really was hoping the cargo system refactor would come with a faked economy. So far, they've implemented some things with Pyro that go along with that, kind of making specific locations make more sense about what they produce. So the moon of Daymar is really high in laranite. So if you go to Daymar, you're going to be able to find more laranite. If you go to Selen, there's not as much laranite, but you might be able to find aluminum, something like that. I think aluminum is an alloy. Isn't it? I think it's an alloy. Anyway, cave archetypes. We're going to have more cave archetypes coming in the near future. Ice, alien, whatever. I wonder if they'll do ones that are manufactured, like either mines, like actual cutting down into the earth, kind of a mine, or ones that are created by things like the sandworm. Might be neat. Chapter 1, the only reason that I did this was because Squad 42 is coming in hot, probably end of the year. Character work, of course, this is a Squad 42 one, but this kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier with the character creator. My hope would be in the nearish future, we start being able to vary our characters' shape, build, height, weight, that kind of thing in the near future to kind of go along. It would be neat to kind of have it be a system similar to the way that they do their heads, where it's combining the features of other ones. So you can make things that are weird looking, but not inhuman looking. Like there are Fallout where they just make characters with gigantic ears and weird noses and sunken in eyes, and they clearly no human would actually look like that. CIG has kind of settled on kind of a cool way to do it, where you can combine this guy's ears with this guy's eyes, and he might come out looking weird, but he doesn't look inhuman. Doesn't cross the uncanny valley. They can do the same thing with bodies. It would be nice to see. Charge Drain is another one that's going to be coming up pretty soon, probably with the engineering loop, which I would assume we're going to see engineering maybe not by March, maybe by June. I think that server meshing is going to take them a little bit of time to sort out and fix. So yeah, we might not be seeing engineering immediately. They're going to have to deal with 4.0 issues before they roll that out. But Charge Drain basically lets you use the multi-tool. You can take power from one system and then add it to another. I assume it will also be I know it involves distortion damage since they have it there, but you'll be able to probably, this will come with batteries too, of draining and charging batteries, both in the multi-tool and other objects around the verse. Contested zones is something that we got now. So this is kind of a cool combination of a, dungeon crawl in a PvP environment. PvE also, there are NPCs in the contested zones. Neat way to get loot. Again, it's a dungeon crawl. Totally cool with me that they have these in the game. A place where PvP players can go to engage in PvP, and they know there's going to be PvP there. Gives them something to do. Like PvP has been lacking in this game, and I think that's one of the reasons why you get the guys that are just like, I just want to shoot someone, and so they come up and they blow you up in their F8 while you're in a hole A, and they're like, good game, good fight, and you're kind of like, bro, I've got size 1 guns and I was just lifting off from the pad. It was not a good fight. But anyway, this gives those people something to do to engage in the gameplay and the game loops that they want. Counterfeiting data download mission. So again, this is something, I think we've got like a bare bones mission that did this kind of. We've had a few one shots that have kind of done this, where you've got to find the code when you go into the bunker and do it for events. But this, in my mind, is much more of an infiltration hacking loop or game mission type that they haven't done yet. Then that will probably come with hacking. Crafting, another huge game loop that is looking like it'll be more and more and more important. I would be shocked if we're not getting crafting in the next 3 to 6 months, at least a base implementation. We've already got an example of that in the Vulture and the Reclaimer, in the sense that we can use the raw materials to build multi-tools and tractor beams and stuff like that. I think they're going to reel that in, so you need specific components as well. So don't expect to be able to continue making multi-tools through that system, but you'll be able to make basic tools, I would think. We'll see. Cutting tier 2. This is one that we know plays a pretty big part in Squadron 42. But this is freeform cutting and cutting through things. We've had the cutter multi-tool part for as long as we've had the multi-tooling game, and it's effectively useless. You used to be able to open doors with it. I think on some of the bunker missions you can blow up the boxes, but other than that, it really doesn't do anything. This will change that. You can actually start cutting through doors, cutting through hinges, moving things, that sort of thing. It will be, well, I guess moving things would be tractor beam, but you get the idea. Will be a big deal. Cybernetics concept. Again, this goes along with the earlier thing I was talking about, tier 2 characters or medical gameplay. Cybernetics will start coming in. Like if your arm takes tier 1 injury, when they bring you back or when they heal you, it might not come back, and then you've got to get cybernetics. What I am curious about with this is, if I don't get cybernetics, will I actually be missing the arm, or will it be the system that it is now, where my arm is there and it looks normal? It's just I can't really use it, like my gun wobbles or something like that. What I am hoping for is that CIG will start implementing more visual cues that a limb has been destroyed, like it's gone. Disarray ammunition. There's a whole bunch of ammunition types here that we've been seeing for a couple of years now that haven't hit. Disarray ammunition is one of them. But this will be interesting because it'll be kind of that whole cost benefit analysis and specializing your loadout for what you're going to be doing. So a bounty hunter might take disarray ammunition so that they can take a bounty alive. I don't know why I said a bounty, but there you go. Whereas if they bump into the bounty's friends, they might be regretting the fact that they loaded up disarray ammunition as opposed to real ammunition, because now they're just shutting these ships down, and then they're rebuilding all of them or bringing them back up with engineering before they can actually capture the guy. So again, it's going to be cost benefit, and there's a bunch of things like that on there. DNA head textures. Only thing I'm going to say there is they're going to keep adding more and more and more heads. Again, with cost benefit analysis, at a certain point, when does it become enough? Like even with the heads that we've got right now, which I think we've got 20 or 30 different heads. I can make something that approximately looks like me. One of the things I would like to see that I think would be kind of cool is if they remove the male and female heads from being restricted, because as an artist myself, that specialized in portraits for a while, you definitely get women with some male features and you definitely get men with some female features, and you can kind of approximate it with some of the heads, but opening it up to everything, you can start to get a lot more variation, like higher cheekbones or whatever. You get the idea that you can kind of make things that are a little bit more androgynous or whatever. You get more options to what the character looks like. One other thing I wanted to put on this, and I was going to make the suggestion to CIG, is male pattern baldness. If they just had a slider on that, they could get like an infinite number of hairstyles just by having it go from like full head of hair down to like Picard or like bald, that you could just switch it you just move that slider from one side to the other, and it removes the hair splines that they're using as guides from those locations. Yeah, get a lot of free hairstyles just by having a slider. And that way they don't have to have like the one dude with the receding hairline, the one dude with the bald head, and the one dude like that. You could just have a slider. Just thought. I don't know how hard it would be to do with their system, but since it's spline based, it seems like you could just have it that the slider removes splines along the specific path. Docking ship to ship. This is one that's been there for a long time. Sorry, I geek out over characters because I used to be a character artist. Docking ship to ship. What's interesting about this is the only team that's worked on this is audio. I don't think that's correct. Of course, it is only an 11-week sprint. We're kind of waiting on this one to sort of see what's going to happen with it. Obviously, it's going to be a pretty big deal being able to dock ship to ship, not only for social reasons, but also for PvP reasons or PvE reasons. Bounty hunting would be a big one. I would assume this is something that we have to have before the Legionnaire would be able to come in. So the fact that it's only an 11-week sprint isn't optimistic, unless they've done more work that doesn't show up here, which is one of the reasons why I stopped doing these sprint watches, because it doesn't seem like they're updating these as often. Docking ship to station. Obviously, we've had this since 3.13. It needs work. Like, it works a little bit better now than it did in the last patch in 3.24. It works a little better in 4.0, but it's still hit or miss. The whole docking and landing on stations or anywhere thing, man, I don't know. It seems like it's kind of broken. Ecosystem enhancements. This is something. So earlier when I was talking about, you have the forest planet, you have the water planet, you have the ice planet or whatever. Ecosystem enhancements. This is something that they talked about a little bit at SitCon. They're going to actually have it that like the equator is going to be warmer than the poles. So that will determine a lot more of what the humidity is, probably the erosion, what kind of plant life and animal life is there, that's flora and fauna, that sort of thing. So that'll be cool once they start implementing it. What will be interesting is what will they do with the existing plants? So what will they do with Microtech, Lorville, and ArcCorp when they implement that system on an existing planet? Will they just kind of keep the terrain as is and let the system here, the ecosystem system, yeah, that's right, implement it for them? Like, how's that going to work? Or are they going to have to redo the planets? And one of the things they said that was kind of nice a couple of weeks ago is they're thinking of bumping up the size of the planets, because that's been one of my complaints for a while, that I feel like it's a little print situation. Like I'm standing on a little tiny ball that's an approximation of a planet, but obviously too small. And obviously when you're down on the planet's surface, the scale isn't as noticeable, but when you're in space and you're looking down and you can see like individual buildings from orbit, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's a little bit off. And I don't know if they need to go 1-to-1, but maybe 50%, 75% of real size would start to get there where you'd start to feel, oh, this is a planet kind of a deal. Just thought. EVA Tier 2. So this is another one where you can kind of see it in the trailer for Squadron 42 when you've got I forget what the bad guys are, the gang that's in Squadron 42, but they kind of float out of the back of their cutlass and EVA over towards I think it's an M50, and they're holding their guns on it, which is interesting, because if I were in an M50 and there's a bunch of people floating around me, I would probably hit them with my M50. I assume they disable that ship. But anyway, again, EVA Tier 2. This was something that we got this year, was the new EVA system. I think it was this year. Anyway, it's been a game changer. The old EVA system, I used to say, was one of the worst out of any space game I had. This new one where you're kind of Iron Manning around is probably one of the best. It really, really feels good. They kind of need to tweak in some of the things where your momentum feels weird still. Like you accelerate too quick, but I don't know. They're going to be implementing systems like backpacks and Waldos and things like that that actually explain how your movement is controlled or give you more control or less control. Like if you're just out there in your undersuit, you're probably just going to be able to push off of things. You're not going to be able to control your motion. You don't have jets on your undersuit. Causey Grazer, along with the Copion and the Marek. These are things that we've gotten, I believe, in last year. Quasi Grazer is in 4.0. I'm not sure where all they have them. I might have to look around a little bit. Right now, you can only get the eggs if you kill the Quasi Grazer, which is a little bit sad. It would be cool if you could actually milk them and just take the eggs while they're alive. Or be able to herd them onto your ship or off of your ship, actually have like cattle rustling or whatever. Anyway, there are going to be a lot more fauna coming, and once the servers can actually handle it, it should be pretty cool. We should start getting more critters. We know there's a Torek out there, which is like a big bull that we'll be getting pretty soon. And there's tons that they aren't telling us about. Fire hazard is an engineering thing we've been looking at for years. Haven't actually seen it. FPS rare scanning. This is one that I've been talking about for years that will be kind of a game changer. You can actually start low flying and it'll block basically wild weaseling. You're flying nap of the earth. Radar won't be able to pick you up because you're basically occluded by the mountains. In space, if you fly behind an asteroid, the scanners will, or the radar will lose lock on you. You get the idea. Freight elevators, we got this in the last year. Again, being able to move. It's a little more time consuming, obviously, to load up crate and stuff like that. It's immersive, but it's kind of one of those things that I think it has both driven people towards and away from cargo moving, because now it's much more of a process. And especially if you want to have your gear, it's much, much more of a process. Like, yeah, I think I've said enough about that. Gatok Railin, this is the bigger Railin ship, or the bigger Gatok ship, Xi'an ship. I think this one is probably a dark horse for this year. Wouldn't be shocked if they're working on it. They did have a lower sprint on it, but I would not be shocked if the Railin is going to be in Squadron 42, a lot like the Polaris is, so they need to roll it out a little bit quicker. The Sulian was part of that process of building up a smaller asset pack to enable them to build the Railin. No guarantees on that one. It's just kind of a feeling I have deep down in my pants. Yeah, Grey Cat Industrial Mining Droid. This is the Sidnus mining droid. They have it in Squadron 42. We know they have it in Squadron 42. We've been seeing this thing for ages. Really, really cool. I want one in the verse. We're probably not getting one for a very, very long time. Grey Cat Industrial Salvage Tool. The only reason I had this up here was because they were talking a couple weeks back with the character art team, and they're saying that eventually they want to have specialized armors for the industrial loops. So with the salvage tool, you'll actually have a tube that goes from the gun into the backpack, and you'll be able to fill up the backpack, giving you a lot more room to like salvage and mine and stuff like that. We haven't seen the industrial mining tool. That's interesting. Hacking Tier 0. Again, this went from kind of a mini game thing that they were thinking to a whole loop of its own. Like, you might have a character, like in Cyberpunk, you can have a netrunner. You might have a person in your group that is just a hacker. I think it will be, for certain professions, that important, but we'll see. Heat suits. Have had them for ages. They are apparently very rare in the verse right now. That's what I'm hearing. Like you can't buy them anywhere, which I wanted to double check Tammany and Sons in Lorville and make sure you can buy them there, because that used to be the place that you would buy them. Of course, you can get them for sub gear, but yeah, I'm always really twitchy when you have like an actual cost block on something, like you have to spend real money. Hospital surgeon, again, next tier of medical. It would be nice if more things happen in the hospital than you just lay on a bed. Like it's actually touch and go. The surgeon's good, but if you have a friend that's better, you probably want to go to the friend than go to the surgeon. Incendiary ammunition, again, it's going to be ammunition that can light things on fire. We haven't seen it yet, but we know it's out there. Item overheat, speaking of, this thing can actually cause things to light on fire, I believe, but this is also mostly having to do with weapons. If you fire them a lot, or if you fire them into the red, they'll start overheating, and it'll cause damage to that weapon, cause them to misfire more, and probably eventually cause them to crash entirely or not work entirely. And you'll have to repair them before you can use them again. Ladders tier 1. We know this is animations that they are working on 2 sitcoms ago, and we still haven't seen the animations come into the game. It'll be a lot more freeform with climbing ladders. Like you'll be able to climb up, stop, look around, hold your gun, like shoot while you're climbing a ladder, that kind of thing. Be able to jump off the ladder and grab something. We haven't seen it. Same thing with lean over cover. You can kind of do the side lean now, but this will actually have it where you're shooting over something. But yeah, haven't seen it yet. Life support, again, engineering, light amplification scopes are in the game. Lockable containers, we kind of have this now with some of the events, like Ninetales Lockdown, or what was it? The one where they invade Crusader. We've seen part of that, but I think the real one will be coming with hacking. Mag stripping refill. This is something that we've got now, where if you hold down, I think it's left alt and 1, you'll kind of raise your gun up and you'll just hear this noise that's going. And thankfully this noise, it used to bug out and it would just keep looping the noise over and over and over again. But it will basically, all of your mags that are like 1 round or 5 rounds or whatever, it'll consolidate all of those into full mags. Kind of useful, like especially in the firefights where you're not like, okay, I'm out of mags, so I'm going to take this one with 5, bang, bang, bang. Oh crap. Okay. That one's done. Now I'll use this one to 7. And by then you're getting killed. Manual tier 2, again, manualing largely works now, but I think this is the next version of it. This is the one where you're jumping over and grabbing onto ledges and stuff like that. It kind of works. The one they showed off at SitCon a couple years ago was a little bit more involved. Map and radar system rework. The map system is working now and is a game changer. It is really cool. It's kind of to the point now where you're wondering, how the hell did I do anything with the old map? And that's a fair question. The radar system rework, kind of waiting on that one. Master modes is a totally incontrovertible system that everybody loves and no one ever complains about. Medical gown, just a real quick point about this. Medical gowns should probably just dissolve when you take them off, considering that I would guess if they just did the metrics on it, probably 80% of the items that are being generated on servers now are medical gowns and like bottles of water. Like, just dissolve that stuff. I mean, I guess you could pay someone to clean it up, but MFD reworks, they're in the game. They mostly work right now. They don't necessarily save. So when you go and you do things, like, let's say that you go into quantum after being in combat, it'll switch it to a different layout. And if you're going back into combat, you got to switch up your MFDs real quick. Kind of a pain in the ass. I'm sure they'll dial that in since it's only been one patch now. Military multi-tool, this is the one that you see in Squadron 42. This one is cool because as opposed to having to switch out the little modules, you just switch a dial in the back of it and it'll do like mining and cutting and tractor beam and stuff like that. That seems useful, and once it's in the game, I will definitely be getting one of those. Mobiglass rework. This is one that they will be improving on with building blocks more and more as time goes on. Right now, we've got my puppy is protesting. He's saying this video has gone on too long. We will be getting more apps. Right now, I think probably 3/4 of the apps are building blocks, and they've got a couple of the older ones just because they didn't have time to rip them out, redo them in building blocks, put them back in. So you've got kind of this weird mix of old and new. They will eventually all be new, probably by the time Squadron 42 comes out. Navy jumpsuit. This one's, of course, been out for a long time. What would be nice is if they had more uniforms and like ship gear and options. I think Sis and Kate said this, where they raided some engineer dude on a in a bunker and just happened to take his stuff, but when Kate put it on, it looked completely different. They're like, where did this come from? Where did this suit come from? And then another guy put it on and it was like the usual brown sort of jumpsuit. But it would be nice to have sort of jumpsuits or utility overalls, kind of a thing that we could use that came in a variety of different colors or whatever. New character customizer. I think I've already talked about that one enough. New missions cargo hauling was something that we got that was obviously now you can do cargo missions that aren't, I'm going to buy all this cargo, fly it from A to B and sell it. And if anything happens along the way, I just lost all that money. Now you've got these cargo missions where someone is paying you to take stuff from point A to point B, or point A and B to C, or A to B and C, kind of a deal. So kind of cool. So new missions package extraction. I just want to point out that this is one of the games that I play with your mom. New missions, repair, charge, and drain. This is one of those that we're going to get with engineering. Yeah, I mean, we still kind of have to wait and see on this one, but this will be the kind of thing where they'll say, hey, my comm antenna is down. I need someone to repair it. You'll take that mission. You'll go down there. You'll drain power off of whatever, the air conditioning system, and pour the power into the comm tower, and the comm tower will work, but now the radar system won't work. So what do you do there? Just be kind of interesting. Repair, charge, and drain. There you go. New player experience. This will be the hill that I die on, but I think the new player experience should take place in an instanced hangar and utilize the sim pod in the hangar. So you get in a sim pod, you kind of get your driver's license in that system, and while navigating the hangar, you learn all the mechanics, and that way you could take that hangar and put it literally anywhere in the verse. You're not making a new player experience for Area 18, New Babbage, ArcCorp, whatever. You're not having to remake a mission for each location that comes up. You have an instanced hangar, you're done. You can tweak it over time, but that's it. Next, system, planet, and mission setup. So this will be a quick point where I just kind of want to show what we're going to be getting in the near future. So this is Nyx. As you can see, there are 3 planets and then a bunch of jump points. Relatively simple system. Apparently one of the things that they're working on right now is kind of going back and retconning. These planets were supposed to be uninhabited. Now they're going to actually make them inhabited, apparently, which is interesting. But you can kind of see there's a jump point to Pyro, jump point to Castra. I think Telemar's right there. Nope, that's it. It's just Pyro and Castra, which we'll take a look at in a second. The next system we'll be getting is Castra, which this is a military system. So Nyx is largely lawless, kind of like Pyro, but not to the same extent. It's not actually run by criminals. It's basically just a system that the UE hasn't claimed. It's an independent system. Castra is very much a military system, and you can sort of see that there are, I think, 2 planets here. Yeah, and Cascom is the military one. Blue Giant, so we haven't seen a blue star yet. That'll be interesting. You can sort of see the jump points. You got Pyro here. So Pyro is really going to be the hub with these things. Yeah. Puppy is having concerns. It's almost lunchtime. But yeah, Castra is going to be the opposite of any system we've had. This is going to be the super lawful system that any pirate coming in here can probably make a lot of money, but the risk versus reward, they will be jacked because this is where the military is. Almost done. Almost. There you go. Good boy. And then after Castra, we get Terra. Terra will probably be one of the more complex systems, just as far as the civilization goes, because it is one of the centers of the Empire. It's technically one of the competitors to Terra, or to Earth itself. Sol system. Yeah, so again, you can get to Pyro. So again, you're kind of seeing there's Stanton, there's Pyro. You can go through Terra. Okay, so we've obviously got the map here. Stanton's the one that we've had forever. Now we've got Pyro, which is, why am I not seeing Pyro on this? Pyro's right there. So you got Stanton is connected to Pyro. The next one we're getting after that is Nyx, and Nyx is connected to Castra, and so is Pyro. So you kind of got this little triangle here that'll be interesting to see how they play it out. And then we're getting Terra, which is down here. So you've got a little triangle here between Pyro, Terra, and Stanton. Of course, you can see that Pyro is the only one of these, I think, that is connected to 3 systems. So Stanton, Terra, and Nyx through this. Now, the real question is, what's next? Like, what would be the next system they roll out? And they have a few options. Magus is an interesting one because it's connected to Terra, Stanton, or Terra and Stanton. I don't think it's connected to Pyro. Cool thing about Magnus is that is the home of Drake. And I think that one is also mildly independent. Hadrian would be an interesting one. Again, that one might be too much like Castra. It's also a military system. You could start going other places like Goss, which is down here. Nope, that's Tyak. Where is Goss? Goss system right over here. And Goss system would be neat because it's the home of the Carnival. Moving on down. Ocean share improvements. I would hope they're going to start implementing more underwater things. Low priority for them. Obviously, this was a 3.10 thing, but I just kind of like to use it as, are they going to be implementing submarines and stuff like that? Again, very low priority in a space game. Origin G12. This is their rover. This is the equivalent of the Ursa or the Cyclone. I believe it's a 2-seater, but it's enclosed. Kind of cool. I have the pack when this originally came out with all 3, and I think since then I've kind of CCU'd things out of it, but there's the standard rover, there's the anti-air one, and the racer. I think there's a racer. Kind of a cool little vehicle. They worked on it for a while. I think it even showed up on one of their kind of ships we're working on, kind of a thing, and then it just dropped off. Orison mascot. So we saw this in Crusader lockdown or whatever it was, they showed the mascot suit in the background on the trailer, but we still haven't seen it in game. I don't know. I might have to go look and see if they've actually put it in game around the space whale, but it's basically a person in a space whale costume because Orson is basically kind of like an industrial Disneyland. Persistent habs, persistent hangers. Persistent hangers mostly work now, but I had this nasty moment earlier in the week. I'm kind of trying to gear up for that whole pariah thing, like bring a bunch of gear over and put it in the ship. And so I just kind of put it over to the side of the hab. And when I log back in, gone. Like all that gear. Armor is expensive now. But persistent habs, persistent hangers, as server meshing comes up, starts working a little bit better, all that sort of stuff will start cleaning up. Personal inventory. I don't know. The personal inventory system it's interesting. It's an interesting take. I don't think CIG needs to reinvent the wheel every single time. But they do seem to be making some smoothing it out a little bit. Physics, rope simulation. We still don't know what the hell this thing is. It's been on there for like 5 years, 85 weeks. I think it's as far as like moving things with ropes as opposed to tractor beams and stuff like that. So like a low tech system or a system without batteries. Also kind of having to do with their cloth and stuff like that. Exploration, like being able to climb. I don't know. They haven't really talked about it. Plasma ammunition. Again, another thing, another one of those ammunition types that they worked on for a long time. We haven't seen what it'll actually do. They haven't really talked about it. Player body. This is an old one. This is an old one that they did 2 weeks ago. I think their player body is due for an update. Astropub, Paul Shelley often talks about the Hank Hill butt on the male character. He's not wrong. The character model was top notch in 2016. It could stand to have a bit of an update. Player visor HUD, we've got this now. It's not fully implemented. It's now building blocks, so they'll be able to put more stuff in there. Player reflection, this was in the PTU of 4.0. I think they've pulled it for this preview version. It was kind of a phoned in experiment that they were doing. It was basically a camera that was pointed at you. So as opposed to being mirrored as like an image of your guy. So if you were waving this hand in the other one, it would be, he would also be waving his right hand. So you'd be moving in opposition like this. So it wasn't a mirror and it was like one LOD removed. So your character's hair and detail of their face would be removed. Interesting. And you wouldn't be wearing armor or anything like that. It was interesting. Reflections are something that's not too difficult to do in single player games. In massively multiplayer games, you have to be extremely careful. Precision targeting, because it doubles the number of polygons. Precision targeting, that is in the game now. I have not used that as much as I wanted to. The new prone, I actually think this is in the game now. I know I've been prone and it feels a lot better now, but I haven't actually gone out in 3D and looked at my character motions. It would be interesting if you were prone and you rolled onto your back and you had like one of those giant backpacks that would stop you and you'd only be able to roll a little bit. Will they actually do that? Who the hell knows? Quantum simulation. This is now Star Sim. So it's coming. Radar scanning, jamming, pinging, that kind of thing. Already talked about that. Rastar. This is the system that we will be using to make our bases. So big deal. They just kind of need to work on the interface, the UI for us to be able to build stuff, because it'll definitely look different from what the devs are using. Refinery ships. I'm not sure why I popped this one open, probably because we've only got 2 refinery ships right now. We've got the Vulture and the Reclaimer. So there's obviously a lot of vehicles missing in that lineup. We don't have a small ground vehicle. We don't have, oh no, refinery ship. That's why I picked this one. So right now we only have one refinery ship and we don't have it in the game. And that is the Expanse. The MISC Expanse is like the introduction refinery ship. Yeah, so refining will be its whole own game loop eventually, and you'll have people that'll be specialized in it. Yeah, will be interesting, especially since that says ships and not like game loop. So it has the suggestion that we've got more refineries on the way, or refinery ships. Reputation. So this is like Reputation V2. This is one of those things that I think Reputation will be the check on griefing. Again, I do not consider piracy and marauding to be griefing. I don't consider PvP to be griefing. PvP can be griefing depending on how you go about doing it. But Reputation will stop, or should kind of ice out, the murder hobos. Because someone, for example, that's sitting off of Checkmate Station, which is one of the lawless stations in Pyro, if they're sitting off of Checkmate and just blowing up everybody that tries to land or take off, the gang that runs that station would have something to say about that. So that person will have a toxic reputation with the gang that runs Checkmate, and they'd have like probably a pretty big crime stat for any lawful system that they go to, because they're almost certainly killing UE citizens. So they're going to have a big bounty on their heads. Eventually they're going to get to the point, like I was saying earlier, where they won't be able to land anywhere. They won't be able to refuel anywhere. They won't be able to repair their ship, anything else. So their ship will just be falling apart or unflyable. And eventually they'll either have to conform and join some aspect of the game as far as like an actual game loop, like piracy or marauding. For those who don't know, the way that I define piracy, the goal is to get the cargo with as little combat as possible. So that can include strong arming, like, hey, give me your cargo or we're going to blow you up, where you just kind of use overwhelming force and you're kind of like, hey, we can kill you, but we'd rather we have a relationship here. Like, you give us your stuff and you're allowed to go free. We don't care about you. We just want your stuff. Marauders say, hey, boom, we're blowing you up. We're taking your stuff. Minimize the risk to ourselves. You're not calling your friends. You're not going to stall us. You're not going to hide out in your ship and blow us up as we unload our cargo. We're just going to kill you and take it. Those are kind of the two schools of thought as far as like the piracy loop goes in my brain. That's how I define them. Griefing is when you're not trying to play the game. You're just trying to annoy people. Pad ramming, specifically calling out one single person and just going after them and going after them and going after them and going after them until they quit the game. You're playing the person that is playing the game, not the game itself. The game itself does not matter. That's griefing. Like, I have other vids on that. Rescue transport information or missions. These are interesting because we still have a few ships out there that we haven't gotten yet, specifically because the transport missions aren't in yet. These require the NPCs to be in a state where they will go onto your ship, sit down in a location and stay there, reach a destination, get up out of their seat and leave. Actually, going along with like the quasi-grazer, I'll bet this would apply to that too, of herding the quasi-grazers onto your ship. It's a whole separate entity. So getting NPCs to be able to navigate that is kind of a difficult thing to do. So it will be interesting to see how CIG gets that working. Again, I think that this is a lower priority for them. So maybe a year or two. We'll see. Roads. This is one that pops up all the time. Again, we need a reason for roads to exist before they put roads in the game. Like, They could put roads all around Lorville. Doesn't matter if there's nowhere to drive to or no reason to drive there as opposed to fly. That's the big issue, is they need reasons for you to drive somewhere rather than fly there. And hopefully they aren't so artificial and transparent that people are all like, okay, you're just forcing me to drive somewhere. I'm just going to avoid that loop. RSI Apollo, that's the medical ship. We saw it on their side scroller. Sometime this year, we'll get it. I would hope that it comes with the next tier of medical. Let's see. What is interesting here is they have got there it is. They've got the Galaxy on here, but they don't have the Perseus. Just as a reminder, the Perseus and the Galaxy flip-flopped. Presumably because they're doing something with the Galaxy, probably refining. Oh, refinery. The Galaxy has a refinery on it. And in theory, a base builder. But they're probably realizing those modules, it's a modular ship, probably further down the line. And so they flip-flopped it with the Perseus, which is just a warship. 2 big cannons, crew of 3 to 5 people will be pretty awesome. I have one. Might be rocking that ship until they release the BMM. We'll see. Anyway, that's just a notice that they don't have the Perseus on here, but they're definitely working on the Perseus right now, as opposed to the Galaxy, which they've got on there. Salvage vehicle munching. Again, one of the things that they have said repeatedly is that the vehicle munching that's in the game right now, where you just kind of use the sonic inducer that vibrates the thing into blowing up into particles that go in, that is not the system that they wanted. They wanted to have it that you physically like rip the ship apart, pull in chunks, and it goes into the grinder. That's what they want. Now, are they still going to do that? Or are they kind of like, we've got a system that works. People aren't complaining too much. Let's just go with the whole vibrates it with grav waves into nothing and drag those particles in. Leave it that way. I don't know. Vehicle munching might be more interesting just because they can start implementing things like if you start munching a vehicle that you haven't, like a hard space shipbreaker things. Like if you just start chewing up a ship that hasn't been vented and you haven't pulled the components, you haven't pulled the fuel, you haven't pulled the weapons or the ammunition, missiles, that sort of thing, it'll blow up and destroy your ship or seriously damage it. That could be another thing that they're waiting for on actual vehicle munching. Sandbox prison activities. Right now, you can escape, you can mine, or you can run in and fix the O2 generators. It would be amazing if they started implementing systems that were reputation based, like there are prison gangs, including the guards or even the warden, and you could run missions for them, build up reputation with the gang. Just something that you could put people in prison for longer and they still get to play a game while removing that person from the rest of the community for a length of time that is proportional to what they did, like real prison. Scope magnification. We got this in the game now. It is pretty cool. I think it's the only game that I've seen where they actually have the optical sights be optical sights. See it item handling. This is something that they have been working on. You can sort of see updated February 28th, 2020. So almost 5 years ago, this is something that they've been saying that we need. In this one, you can actually ride shotgun. You can sit on the side seat with your shotgun and shoot and stuff. That's not something you can do right now. Security behavior. Again, this should go along with the reputation system. This should be one of those things that security should be much more scary than it is right now. Like right now, there's basically 0 consequences for someone who engages in piracy or marauding. They get a crime stat, and the only way they're going to have that crime stat enforced is if another player goes out and kills them. The NPCs, even the station guns, are not a threat at all. they need to become a threat. They need to be able to start doing the thing that happens. I believe it's Eve, where the government ships start showing up, and when they start showing up, you're screwed. You will be taken down because it's the government. That's the kind of thing that needs to happen to start balancing it off. When we just had Stanton, that didn't make sense. Now that we have Pyro, it kind of does. They need to start implementing that system, but giving the people that have long wanted PvP and piracy and all these things a patch or two to kind of enjoy the moment, that's cool. Capacitors are another thing. Where you shoot a ship matters. They'll start mattering a lot once they implement the more physicalized damage and armor. Those capacitors and where you hit a ship, you'll be shooting to take out components, not just reducing the overall hit pool until it hits 0. Ship CPU. Reason I had ship CPU up there is a ship CPU will have a certain number of slots. Those slots will be able to be used for the blades. The blades will be able to perform certain actions. And not all of them are combat related. So if you want to use one to control just a turret, you are probably going to be sacrificing something else useful. Depending on what loops you're doing, maybe you don't need to know like the best place to trade, and you want that turret, and that's more useful. Sliding, this is another traversal option that we've seen the last 2 years, has not been implemented yet. Hopefully pretty soon. Solar burst, this is something that's supposed to be happening in Pyro. We'll probably be getting that with 4.x or whatever. Space mines, I'm not sure if they're going to hold off on space mines until they start making the Nautilus, but it would make sense to kind of have it as an aerial denial or way to pull you out of quantum. Space whale, there's another critter that we'll probably be getting pretty soon, the storm wall. Stanton asteroids, I just pulled this one. This one's been here since 3.13. We're starting to get more different kinds of asteroids. The reason why I pulled up Stanton asteroids is because the only location in Stanton that exists in lore that we don't have yet is the Aaron Halo. Originally, when they were originally thinking out how the game would work, the Aaron Halo is just kind of a barrier between the inner system and the outer system. And now they don't really need that just because of the way quantum works. So they don't really need that artificial barrier anymore, but it would be cool. They had some really, really cool concepts of the Aaron Halo, and I hope they don't give up on that. I might ask the lore people what happened with it, if it's been ditched or not. Surrender. Obviously this was something that was implemented in 3.14. Weirdly, it doesn't seem to work anymore. Like, I've been attacked, when I've had a crime stat, allegedly, by guards, and they haven't allowed me to surrender. But you can go to a kiosk at like Grim Hex and surrender, and you'll just go to Klesher, and the advantage being that you get to keep your gear. Swimming, tier 0. Obviously we don't have swimming in the game. This is one that they worked on for during the pandemic, and we haven't seen it yet. Would be kind of cool to get it. They might be trying to implement actual buoyancy. So if you're wearing heavily armor, you're going to be sitting on the bottom. And they will probably have to implement pressure and stuff like that as a scuba diver. Something I would concern myself with. Takeoff and landing. They still need to implement a landing camera or something, because when you're landing anywhere that isn't like a pad or something like that, you almost have to go third person just to make sure that you're over the thing that you think you're on. It would just be nice to have some sort of UI element that you could look at to be like, oh, okay, that's what's underneath me. Tracking app. Again, this is something that's going to be associated with Bounty Hunting V2. We do not have it yet, but it will be implemented soon-ish. Tons of new ships coming. Underground facilities. This is obviously one that's been out for a while, but it would be nice if we got like new bunkers as opposed to kind of the semi-modular ones they have right now. Once again, lunchtime. vehicle names and serial numbers. This is one they implemented. The community howled because everyone got the good names early. Everyone got the good names early, and everyone got pissed off because Millennium Falcon was taken. They couldn't have Millennium Falcon. And rather than just sort of be like, okay, well, we rethought it, we're going to implement it this way so that people could kind of have the names that they want, and they're not taking lol boobs 420 or something like that because all the other names are taken. Again, 3-week sprint, they could go into a little more detail on that. One of the reasons that I haven't said the name of my Banu Merchantman is specifically because if they implement the system that they have right now, where only one ship in the game can have that name, I don't want someone to take the name that I have in my head for my ship. Unfortunately, because of the number of players, someone else has definitely thought of that name for their own ship. I'm just saying they need to think it through. One last thing I'll say about vehicle names is it would be much more realistic if you were targeting a ship and the name of the ship came up, not the name of the person in the pilot seat, because it's the Millennium Falcon. It's not the Han Solo. The Volt weapons, we should be getting the Volt weapons pretty soon. Xi'an facial rigging, and this will be the one that I wrap up with. I think Xi'an will be the first aliens we get in the game, which is kind of disappointing because I was hoping the first aliens in the game would be the Tavaran, because that would make the most sense since they're actually members of the Empire. And it would make sense that they would be everywhere humans are in the game. And gang, that is it. Thanks for sticking out this deep dive, which I haven't done for a long, long time. I hope you're able to get into 4.0. It's kind of weird. It's one of those things like when I'm in the game, I can play for hours. And then I go to land somewhere and I can't land. So it's weird bugs. And if you can't get in at all, I won't rub it in too hard, because there is some broken stuff. Oh, one thing I want to talk about, wheeled vehicles refactor. Driving around still feels weird. I don't know what they're doing with their driving mechanics, but steal from another game. Like Cyberpunk had really, really good feel on their vehicles. Steal their model. Anyway, I hope if you can't get in, you can get in pretty soon. Character reset is something that CIG mentioned as a possible fix. Your mileage may vary. Other than that, gang, see you in the verse. Catch me next time.